Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
Hi, hello, how are you doing? My name is Lillian and you're listening to Africa Tech Radio. And of course, you know that it is time for Back to Base. And on Back to Base, what do? We have a chat with tech founders because we want to humanize them. We want to let you know that these people are flesh and blood. It's the same thought that runs, well, sometimes can be the same thought that runs through your mind, that runs through their minds, but they are humans, okay? They are not super humans. They have amazing, ideas, but they are still humans. This is just so we can let you know that you can achieve whatever it is you want to achieve in this world. And today, we're going to be having a chat with a young man whose name is Moses Enenwali. Please, I'm sorry. Just tell me how to pronounce your surname.
You tried. Enenwali is fine.
Enenwali. My parents will be so shaking their heads. Like, this is my daughter. It's so nice to have you on board. Amazing. So in Nigeria, logistics and shipping means getting things from one place to another. And it can be hard because of things like bad roads, customs rules. We don't even want to get into custom rules right now. And the challenge of getting these items to the owners in one piece. Like, they'll start telling you, the thing that I bought, the screen has scattered on the... And even getting to them at all, right? And despite its numerous issues founders face in the industry, people are working tirelessly to make it better by fixing the glitches. They're using new technologies and finding smarter ways to navigate the ecosystem. And I have always wondered, some companies are really struggling in that industry, but others are thriving. What is their secret? And that is what we're here to find out. Today's topic is unveiling the secrets of successful logistics and shipping operations through the lens of Topship. And we have the founder of Topship, Moses, in the building. Hello, Moses.
Hi, Lillian. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
I'm really excited that you joined us today. You have no idea. So we're going to start from the bases because this program is called Back to Base. So we're going as far as possible. And I want to start with whether or not you had any slightest idea that you were going to be a tech founder ever, like in your whole childhood.
Right. So that's interesting. So I think I've always wanted to be a business person, a businessman. I think both my parents are entrepreneurs, and so I think it was just in our blood growing up. So there was always that entrepreneurial spirit. But tech specifically, I think there's a lot to do with the times that I was coming of age. It was sort of tech was what was the tool that everyone was using to solve problems, and so it made a lot of sense that I would of course fall in that category, the same way a lot of people that are my peers as well fell in the same category. But I think, the combination of those two things. So the entrepreneurial spirit has always been there, but tech specifically is a function of the times, I would say.
So when you said that you wanted to go into business, what kind of business are we talking about?
So funny thing, when I was in university, I started my first business in university, and this was because I was born and raised in Jos in Plateau State, and when I went to university in Hertfordshire in the UK, but my mom worked at the Bank of Agriculture, and she had told me many times about how post-harvest losses and supply chain issues would affect delivery of the final goods, so tomatoes or whatever, coffee, cashews that were grown in Plateau State to anywhere they wanted to distribute. And of course, that affected their market size, affected how much they could make, it affected a lot of things. When I went to university, I got the idea with a friend of mine who was also a classmate too. I had known that Plateau State has very good Arabica coffee beans, almost grade A Arabica coffee beans. And so the idea was we'll get these Arabica coffee beans green from Plateau State, and would move it to Hertfordshire in the UK, and we'll roast it and blend it and then distribute it. And so charge a markup and then distribute it to coffee shops around the school. And so, of course, they launched under the university's umbrella and started running the business. It was called Time All Coffee, and we'll import and distribute coffee into the UK. Of course, looking back 10 years now, it's funny that I mean, absolutely the supply chain and importation business, but that was my first business, and so that was the first time I actually forayed to ventured into business, to run a business and to make money from providing a service or a value. Yeah,
that seemed like a very solid plan. What happened to that?
Right. So of course we were running it under the university's incubator. Right. It was me, my friend, and a couple of other people. And of course, running a business under an university incubator, it's sort of seen like a project, not a real business. So at the moment we graduated school, we had to convert it into a real business. And you had to pay taxes and you had to do all those things that a real business will have to do. It's no longer a university experiment. And so when we did the math, it didn't make sense anymore.
The math was not math.
It wasn't math, exactly. Our margins were already super thin, and it was a no-go. So, and then of course, again, we now got real jobs, right? I got a job at Ernst & Young. Friends of mine got jobs at Barclays and Citibank. And so it was like, should we consider this our hustle, or should we go and take proper white-collar job and make collecting better money? So we all sort of made the decision that, you know what, it's time, it has run its course, let's move on. It was also in retrospect, it was also very challenging to run, to be very honest with you. We were 18, 19 at the time. We didn't really know what we were doing. And we lost a lot of money just because of inexperience and lack of essential relationships. So it was also bad timing. You know, it didn't make sense financially. So we decided to move to greener pastures, so to speak.
For you say you're teenagers, right? Running that business. For a teenager to have that kind of business idea, it is mind blowing. And I think we should have more of that in the world today. But you know, the focus is shifting. What do you think is the reason, before we dive into how Topship came about, what do you think is the reason that a tiny population of the world, as young as they can be, they are already focused, they're already thinking out of the proverbial box, while the others are, in my former boss's voice, faffing?
Right. To be very honest with you, I'm always a look on the bright side guy, right? And I would say there are more businesses being started now than ever before. I don't think there's been the rate at which small business, the rate and the ease at which small businesses can be started now. I think it's unprecedented. I don't think it's happened ever like this before. So looking on the bright side, we have more people that are starting businesses, and it's also easier, right? Right now, you start a business with just your phone and an Instagram account, and you've opened the business. So in the grand scheme of things, it's significantly better, right, and easier, and you have more support now. One thing that definitely helps is seeing other people like you do it. And so you know that, okay, I can actually do it myself. When you see 16-year-olds start businesses and talk and sell themselves, or sell things that they're passionate about and they're good at, it gives you the inspiration and the motivation that you can do the same thing. So I think that definitely helps. But I mean, I think people progress in different phases, especially young people. And so it's very easy to look at yourself at 18 and say, oh, I'm not starting a business. You watch Social Network and you see Mark Zuckerberg and you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing in my life? But I think, again, life is not a sprint race. You know, I think people evolve differently. And but I think, looking at the bright side, to be very honest, I think now more than ever before, small businesses are being started in an unprecedented manner and are being scaled, and it's just so much easier now than even when I was starting at 18. When I started my business, all the tools that you have now, we didn't have them then. Right now, you can collect payments online. There's Stripe, there's Paystack. You can start. There's so many tools for creating e-commerce brands. You don't have to hire a contractor to do the website for you. So many things have changed. So I think it's just a whole new world, and I think that's the rate at which small businesses are started by young people would continue to rise going forward.
When I saw the social network, I thought about my life for about 2 weeks.
That one was definitely triggering.
Oh my gosh. Like, seriously, what am I doing with my life when somebody that young is pulling that kind of string? But do you think that upbringing is a major factor to this? Do you think, because I have this idea, or would I say idea, a philosophy of, call it whatever you want, that a child that has not seen a plane before cannot dream to modify an aircraft or be an engineer on a plane. Like, you have to actually see sometimes, right? See that you can actually achieve this to be able to achieve better than that. Do you think that environment and upbringing is a big factor to, the dreams that our young ones have?
100%. I think it plays such a huge role in just forming your worldview. If you've seen your parents, your father and your mother stay up all night making phone calls, trying to push their business day after day, year after year, it does something to you, right? It instills work ethic in you. You see how things get done in the world. And I think that changes just the way you are as a human being. So I think it has absolutely a lot to do with it. And I think it doesn't even have anything to do with rich or poor. I think it's just seeing those values in display while you're growing up. And it could be from parents or from people around you, your wider circle. It could also be from friends. It could also be from external influences, But just seeing those values in play and how those values transform things in the world just does something to you growing up. So I think that's definitely a big factor. And like I said, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My both parents are entrepreneurs. I saw my dad go through so many phases as an entrepreneur. I think that definitely did something to not just me, but also my siblings. So yeah, I believe that upbringing has a lot to do with it.
We're going to go back to this later. I'll come back to this later so that you can tell us how, or we can just do that now. A word to parents in general to the shaping of their kids. For instance, I grew up with a very hardworking mom. My mom works hard. Right. And it instilled that work ethic in me that no matter the kind of job I'm doing, even if I'm not earning as much, I put my 100% and add a little 20 to it because I have seen it. Right. What should parents do to enable this kind of, work ethic being instilled to their kids?
So I mean, I don't know if I'm qualified to give parental advice, but I do think that just understanding that the values that you live your life by are have an impact on the people that are watching, the children, family around you. I think that's the important thing to note, because not everyone will be the same. Right? Not everyone is entrepreneurial. Some people are, have different other values. Some people is more patience and calm. Some people have more drive and aggression. Some people with different values, and they have their roles to play in the world and in the grand scheme of things. So I think it's just having that understanding that, look, whatever you're doing, however you treat your work, has an impact on the people around you. If you're detailed and driven and optimistic about your work and enthusiastic about your work, you'll see that your children, of course, would also start to emulate those values in whatever sphere of life they decide to play. I think those values will always show themselves. And I think that's definitely been my personal story so far, and the story of also people that I know, friends and colleagues. It's just seeing the people ahead of you, parents or guardians, live by those very core values of work ethic and integrity, etc. It plays a very huge role in the way they are framed as human beings and how they also treat their work, and whether or not they take their work importantly and are driven about what they are, passionate about what they do. I think it plays a very huge role.
Yeah, children are always watching. That is something that is a thing that a lot of parents forget. Whatever you do, they watch, and at a point in time, you stop being like a god to these children. They start seeing you like a human being that you are. When we were younger, you see, my father is a superhuman. But then you go and say, okay, he's just a man, right? And that is the exact time they will know you for what you really are. So just be a stand-up man or a stand-up woman. Okay, so you have your friends, and your friends have decided that, you know what, I want to sit down and relax and be taken care of. I want to stop this exploitation and importation. This kind of job is not good for my mental health. So you have decided to push that aside, and you got a job. Where did you get a job?
So I personally, my first job was at Ernst & Young. It's a Big Four consulting company, EY, and I was posted I was an associate in the International Tax Services and Transfer Pricing Division, and that was my first job. It was in the Lagos office, and in retrospect, really, really grateful for the opportunity to work there, to work with the clients that I worked with, to work with the colleagues that I worked with as well. I think it was an amazing opportunity. Essentially, what the work was basically pricing intercompany transactions between multinational corporations properly based on the OECD transfer pricing guideline that was just released and implemented in Nigeria. So it was very, very novel in Nigeria at the time. I think when I started, it was the first year of implementation for transfer pricing rules here in Nigeria, which was 2014. So it was an interesting time as well. We felt like pioneers at the time, especially in a very traditional industry like tax. Transfer pricing was a new thing. So I was very happy to have that opportunity and to work with the clients that I worked with. So yeah, that was my first job.
Where did you study again? And what did you study?
So I studied economics and finance at the University of Hertfordshire.
Okay. So after that job you had, you were enjoying your life. Sweet money was coming in, and
Oh no, actually no. I mean, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. So it was more for the experience and learning and the prestige that the brand name comes with than it was for the money. It was a very humble beginning, right? It was.
If I ask you how humble was that humble beginning, it's more than other people's,
So yes, of course, everything in puts in perspective, of course, right? But it was a very humble beginning. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of, and again, we're first year entry level associates, so we're doing all the not so fancy work, right? The number crunching, the following up with clients, chasing receivables, all etc. So I'm writing reports at the same time, working non-stop, right? So it was a lot of work, and the culture in these big four consulting companies is the work ethic that they instill in the people that work there. I mean, I'm sure you've heard stories, right? So it was a lot of work. It was far from the expectation of what the situation we had, which was, always when working in the corporate world, was probably not as stressful as running the business. To my surprise, it was actually a lot of work and a lot of stress. And so no, it was not all rosy, but I was still happy to be there.
I'll take your word for it, but until I know exactly what we're talking about, then. Okay, so what next?
I'm not at liberty to disclose.
I know, and as I said, I know I won't ask you, and I know you wouldn't say, but I'm sure that is better than some people's present situation. Okay. So, what happened next? Where did you work next?
Yes, so I mean, of course, I was there doing the work, enjoying the work, growing the company, and then at the same time, there was a lot of this was 2015, 2016. So if you remember, in Nigeria at the time, that was when tech really started to get into the system, right? And a lot of people were using tech, especially e-commerce, to solve some very basic problems in Nigeria at the time. So I was very interested in that. And I was very interested in all the different potential problems that could be solved with tech, right? So attention was drawn to this, and for me, I was also very interested in how I could play a role as well. So, and I kept thinking about it, right? I didn't want to be a partner at Ernst & Young. I didn't want to play the long game there, and so I kept thinking of, okay, where do I want to play? Where do I want to pitch my tent? And I decided I was going to be tech because I wanted to be able to solve important problems. And so one day, I of course, I was searching for who I potentially work for, and of course, I went straight to some of the big guys there that were leading at the time. So one of the people that I reached out to was one of the founders of Jumia in Nigeria, called Tunde Kende. I reached out to him and I said, "Look, I've seen what you've done, what you guys did with Jumia and the company that they started before Jumia. I think it's very impressive, and I would love to come and work with you." And he responded saying, "Okay, come to my office." I think the following week. And so the following week I went to his office and we had a 3-hour conversation about e-commerce logistics, asked me a bunch of questions. And I think the week after that, he made me an offer to come and join them at the company. And it was the tech company, first tech logistics company in Nigeria at the time. It was called ace.ng. And so I made the very unpopular decision to resign my work at Ernst & Young, my glossy job at Ernst & Young, and go and join this tech startup as a sales associate, basically. Took a pay cut, and that was my next move. So I left Ernst & Young and I moved to Ace.
What year was this?
So this was 2016.
Wow.
It was 2015 into 2016, yeah.
You don't pay for this game. And you look like you're just a fresh graduate. Like, what's your routine? How do you do it? What do you eat?
And that one is just the grace of God. That one is just the grace of God.
Modesty doesn't look good on you.
That's just the grace of God.
Okay, so walk me through the next steps.
Yes. So of course, joining Ace was to me very, I call it my baptism in business. right? Or at the very least, my baptism into tech. And it was a true baptism, right? The culture there was very get your hands into the deep. And that was what I did, right? So I was doing sales, and very quickly I rose through the ranks, got promoted multiple times during my time there, did a bunch of things, but I really enjoyed the challenging environment. And I enjoyed how fast everything moved there compared to where I was coming from. I like the fact that I could own my destiny in the environment, and that my work rate and my work ethic, there was a direct relationship between effort and reward, and I could see it every day, right? And so I was very excited, even though I was broke in my pockets, right? Because I took a pay cut, right? A significant pay cut, and because it was a startup, they can't pay you like UI, right? But even though I took that pay cut, I was excited every day going to the office. I was excited about the challenges we were facing, right? I was still up all night thinking about work, and I liked that feeling. And so I did that for a very long time there, and I enjoyed the ride there. And then, of course, at some point in that journey, some of the founders of one of the biggest e-commerce companies in Nigeria at the time, also as well, called Tracklist, they were one of our clients at Ace, and they reached out to me and said, look, we've enjoyed working with you. We want to start something to solve a very serious problem that we've seen in the supply chain market here in Nigeria. And that is the lack of software for the players that are available. And we want to start this, and we want you to come and join us on it. And so I took some time, thought about it, spoke to them a couple more times, and then made the decision to go and join them to build this. Because I said, okay, you know what? I'm enjoying what I'm doing here. This is an opportunity to do even more at something even earlier. So I took another unpopular decision to leave the even low-paying job at Ace and join another even an earlier startup with even less money. So this was two seemingly bad decisions in a row, and I decided to join this new company to help them build their product. And so that was the decision that I made, and that was the next move.
We are talking to Moses, the founder of Topship Africa, and we're trying to find out how he actually founded that company. And it has been, an interesting conversation so far. So let's just dive into it, right? But now let's just dive into how and when you decided that, okay, this is what I wanted to do.
Yes. So I think the decision was made for me, as opposed to me deciding that I was going to make that decision. I think in 2020, the world took a very sudden and unprecedented turn. And what happened was, basically, without anyone expecting it, basic essential services shut down across the world. And this was unprecedented. I don't think this has happened in the last 100 and something years. And so this was a very unique time, right? And at the time, because I'd been in this industry for a while now, I had a lot of, people with contacts within especially shippers that would reach out to me, especially during this lockdown period, and a lot of them would have either suggestions or tips or, we can do it this way. I know that everyone is locked down, but what about this? And what about this? And what about that? And I have someone that has this request, and I have someone that has that request. And so in the midst of that chaotic, request, search for solutions, the idea to use some of the capacity that was on ground, that was dormant, but able to move around, to make deliveries for cargo and freight came up, which was basically, we can use a lot of these assets because they're dormant now. People aren't traveling around. People aren't moving around for work. There's all these assets on ground, but people are still moving things. In fact, that has gone up 3x, right? And so there's unreasonable demand, unprecedented demand, and unprecedented dormancy or underutilization of assets. And so it was connecting those two things. That was basically how Topship was born. And it was, of course, in the nucleus of everything was COVID-19 lockdowns, right? So it was an interesting time to actually experiment with what we were experimenting with. And so that was the idea behind Topship. And we just started helping these merchants that were reaching out. So it started from the market first. It started from the merchant first. It didn't start from the tech first, or I want to start a company first, or I think a logistics company would make sense first. No, it was basically, there's this funnel of demand that's coming in, and solutions and suggestions and ideas, and we need to meet it, or I need to meet it. And so we created a vehicle to do that. And of course, like I always say, it didn't start as a company initially. In June 2020, when Topship launched, it wasn't a business. It was just a hustle, basically. It was let's help these people with this, because I know how to help them. I know a thing or two about how to connect with these people that have the assets, and I can help you guys. And that was the idea behind Topship. But of course, as time continued to go, they kept coming back, and we started to see even more problems. And that's where I realized that, okay, there's something here that we should pay attention to and probably crystallize. And that was basically the story behind how Topship was born.
Okay, through the lens of Topship, right, what are some key factors that contribute to the success of logistics and shipping operations in today's competitive market? Because we know that there are lots of companies that are doing the same thing in this logistics shipping ecosystem. So, what are those key factors that contribute to the success of a logistics and shipping operation?
Yeah, so that's actually a very, very good question. So there are a couple of things. The first thing that I'll say, and I'll always say this, is having a merchant-focused approach. Because a lot of the time, it's very easy to focus more on the industry as opposed to focusing on who the shippers are. And so I think one of the main key factors to actually winning is focusing on the shipper, focusing on the merchant. So having a merchant focus is extremely critical, especially based on my thesis, on our thesis as a business. So I believe that that's 100% very, very essential. The second thing that I'll say is use tech to make your life easier. There are a lot of tools now that have been that are available as a result of the rapid changes that have happened over the last 20 years, that makes it makes a lot of difference. So utilizing platforms, utilizing tech to simplify things, to get information, to access routes that you don't have capacity in. I think that's absolutely essential to building a business, especially in 2023, a business in supply chain or logistics. But then, of course, again, the last thing that I'll say, the third thing that I'll say is extremely important is an obsession with customer success. There has to be that obsessive focus on the experience. And the reason why it's extremely important is because if you think about the logistics business industry in general, it's one of those places where people almost always expect that there will be problems. And it's like the default, the expectation is so low because they're like, oh my God, I have to send something I have to courier something. I know that there's going to be a lot of things that it's going to be, you already have a headache, right? So that's why I believe that obsessive focus on customer excellence and customer success is essential for winning, especially now, because it might be a crowded market, but there are very few players that get it right in terms of treating the customer well, giving the customer an amazing experience. So that are the three things that I'll say are extremely critical. Having a merchant focus, and utilizing tech and platforms to optimize, and then obsession with customer success.
Okay, let's talk about challenges, because there's no way any successful company would go without challenges. If I am interested in starting my own logistics and shipping company, what are some challenges that I should, expect or look out for? Of course, through the lens of Topship.
Yeah, of course. So I would always say when you're starting any enterprise, dealing with people is going to be the most difficult thing. And that's people across board, your teammates, customers, partners, stakeholders. There's a long list of people that you are going to have to interact with. It's going to be difficult. They're going to be challenges. If, for example, you can ask anyone that runs a logistics business or a dispatch business or whatever, and they'll tell you dealing with managing those dispatch riders, that's a lot of work. Managing your partners is a lot of work. Managing your customers' expectation, explaining things to them, that's a lot of work. So that's the biggest part, the biggest mountain to cross. You have to find a way to have that customer service ethos, so that it's part of your culture, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of challenges from different people. So I think that's one of the bigger problems, right? But then also another big problem, a big challenge that still exists in the industry today is just going back to our beginnings as a company. My belief, and which I believe to be true, is that the problem with the supply chain industry as it stands today, especially in Africa, is not a lack of capacity. It's a lack of access to all the different components. So access to the information, how much capacity is available, what are the pricing points for the commercial pointers for all those assets on the ground. So it's never been a lack of assets or lack of capacity, right? But all the different connecting points, touch points to get to that to initiate and to engage those assets. That's been the challenge, and that still exists because yes, there are buses everywhere, there are vans everywhere, there are planes everywhere. Some of them containers everywhere. Some containers even go back half empty. Some containers come full from China, they go back empty, right? So there's capacity there, all those assets on ground, but how do people know that, okay, there's a container at the terminal in the Papa that is leaving tomorrow, the price points are X, these are the terms, and engage, right? That information is not available on any platform. You have to call your agent, and the agent calls all these other agents. So that's still a very big problem, it's still a big gap. And that's, of course, what companies like Topship try to solve. So I think that those are the two big problems, right? Of course, there are traditional and the basic problems that you'll always face when you start any business, but specific to logistics, I think those are the two big problems. So
you talked about how this problems are, or this one of the last challenge you mentioned is something that Topship has tried to tackle. But what are the other innovative strategies or technologies that Topship has put in place to differentiate itself from other players?
Again, it's coming back to some of the three things that I mentioned around factors of success. I believe that these are key differentiators for us. I think the first thing is we have, as part of our DNA as a company, just going back to our story about how we started, we've always had that merchant focus. So we are obsessive about the merchants. We focus on the merchants, right? And it sounds cliche, but it actually means something in our industry because there are two ways to solve supply chain problems. You can solve it from a demand point of view, which is the merchant, or from the supply side, which is service provider, capacity, boots on ground, etc. We've chosen the demand route because we believe that the merchants is the center, just in terms of the level of information you can get from them, their willingness to give you that information, their willingness to work with you, and they are the demand source, they are the aggregation point. So it's a very critical component of the entire chain. So I'll say the first thing that we've done to differentiate ourselves is just building a merchant-focused business, and that's been part of our DNA since day one. The second thing that we've done to differentiate ourselves, again, is using very simple technology to give merchants access to this supply chain. Because we believe that when you look at the people that are shipping these 50 kg of goods to Turkey, 40 kg of goods to Canada and UK, etc., these are regular people that use Instagram and use TikTok and use Twitter every single day. So why does the booking process for supply chain or for international shipping have to be tedious? Mm-hmm. Why does it have to look like a university? Why does it have to be like a university application form? Right? and to us, we said, look, we have to do away with that belief that it has to be all bookish and serious. It is serious business, but it can be clean and simple. And it can be as simple as booking an Uber from your house to go to the mall, right? That's the process. That's sort of like product vision. And so we've used tech to make this to make it as simple as possible. That's one thing that I would say we've used to differentiate ourselves from a lot of the other players in the market. The third thing and the final thing, again, this mirrors my factors of success, is that customer success obsession. We are very painfully obsessive about making sure that our users have an amazing experience, and we just never let it go. We never relent in that regard. It's part of our core values to delight our users, and that's coming back to the way the industry is set up. A lot of people do not have a good experience when it comes to international shipping or even local shipping. It's hardly ever a good positive experience just in general. And so people almost always expect that it's going to be rocky and not transparent and not, there's so many cliches that go with this. So for us, in conquering that, we've said, look, we're going to make that difference. There's going to be a difference when you use Topship. You're going to see the difference in the experience and the way we treat your business. And you would want to come back because, yes, it's a significantly better experience. So those are the three things that I would say we've done to differentiate ourselves in the market.
Okay, so how do you see the industry evolving in, let's say, 10 years?
So one thing that I'll say that's definitely going to happen, and I think we're already starting to see that, is there'll be way more collaboration within our industry than ever before. And again, this is, of course, the catalyst for this is technology as a tool for business and a tool for change, right? So collaboration is definitely the key one that we're going to see significantly different. More players within our industry are going to be collaborating with each other and openly collaborating with each other. There's going to be a lot of collaboration across functions. So, for example, certain players are more suited towards inland trucking. Certain people are more suited towards just port clearance. Certain people are more air freight below a certain kg. And then we'll see a lot more seamless collaboration across all these different pieces of the puzzle coming together to make things happen. I think that's definitely the future of our industry, and that's definitely where we're placing our bets as a company, is that in the next 10 years there's going to be 10 times more collaboration across. On the supply side, there's going to be more collaboration across the players within the industry.
Okay, now imagine that there are people who are the age you were when you started your first business, right? And they are looking into venturing into the logistics and shipping industry. What advice would you give them? Something you wish someone told you way back?
Yeah. So if you're trying to get into this particular space, the one thing that I'll say is pick a lane and start there, right? And what that means is the supply chain industry is multifaceted. It's not one thing, right? There's no all-inclusive supply chain business. Everyone says that, but it doesn't exist, right? Because there's so many layers. There's warehouse operations, there's sourcing, there's warehouse operations, there's first mile, there's mid mile, there's last mile, there's ocean air freight. There's so many layers to this industry that you can't do all, right? So I would say pick a lane and start there and keep improving how you offer whatever service you offer, every day, and just keep putting it brick by brick, right? And just as much as possible, stay focused on that one lane and keep improving and try to dominate within that lane. Don't try to do everything at once. That's definitely the advice I'll give is, of course, use technology, right? Don't make the assumption of thinking that because things are a certain way today, that in the next 10 years, things will change. Bet on technology 100%. Even if the people in the market are saying, oh, we don't want to use this your solution because it's too difficult, I'll still say bet on technology, because you have to build for the future and not for the moment, because in 10 years time, those market people will be using technology, right? So it's very important to make bets on technology, but I'll definitely say pick a lane, pick one segment of this multifaceted industry and get very good at solving problems within that segment, and then use technology to your advantage. Those are the two things that I'll say.
Is there an exciting update or upgrade from Topship in the pipeline?
So yeah, I mean, we're always working on amazing features for, like I said, we're merchant focused. That's the number one thing about us. So we're merchant focused. So we're always working on amazing features for our users. And of course, we're going to be coming out very soon with some new updates to the product, and we've just launched a new campaign, and that's going to be coming out very, 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 very soon. One of the things that's a core benefits of using our platform is Topship gives you optionality and flexibility, especially with pricing, right? So one of the key things in decision making on international shipping is what shipping option do I use for a particular type of good. So, for example, if you're sending a luxury leather bag to Italy, you might want to buy insurance. You might want to pick, an express option because it needs to get there faster, and it's expensive enough for you to afford to pay the expensive delivery option. So you make the decision based on that. And then in certain instances, you might just want to send just some cheap linen to China, and you don't need to pay so much. Mm-hmm. Topship, you can make those decisions, and we make it very simple for you to make those decisions. So that's one thing that we're highlighting in this new campaign that we've just launched. And yeah, I think a lot of our merchants are really going to find that useful and helpful. So of course, the big thing about us is we always work hard to make sure that we're giving our merchants all the tools they need to succeed as an international business. And of course, that being our focus, flexibility of pricing is on top of that. So that's really what we're pushing right now.
Are you available for mentorship? Somebody says, I want to learn from you. Is there any mentorship opportunity from Topship?
So from Topship, look, I mean, we're always open to hearing from amazing people, right? So I always say, if you have something to say, send me an email. And my email is public, right? So my LinkedIn. My thoughts on mentorship are, I personally don't believe in the traditional concepts of mentorship, which is you sort of sign an unofficial SLA with someone for the person to be your mentor. My style is very different. My style is, if you have a question you want to ask me, just ask me the question, right? Send me an email saying, hey, Moses, this is where I'm at a crossroads. I have this and this. What do you think? Right? Don't say, hey, Moses, I want you to be my mentor. Can we have coffee next Saturday? Like, so it's like, you also have to value my time, right? And your time as well, right? So like my style is always, if you have a question, that's my style. Everyone else has their style. But my style is, if you have a question, shoot us an email saying the question you want to have on that coffee chat. Don't send an email booking a coffee chat.
Yeah.
So ask that coffee chat question immediately, right? Because the mentorship relationship really is very symbiotic, right? So for example, if you say you want someone to mentor you, I think just go for what's the thing you want this person to help you with. Ask them, and then if they tell you, you go and you do what they said, and then you can come back and say, hey, I tried what you said, this was the result. And that's how you start that back and forth.
Yeah.
And then that can evolve into an actual relationship, as opposed to saying, okay, we've agreed to be mentors now. Okay, congratulations, you're now my mentee. Oh yeah, well, what's next? Right? It's
nobody has time to hold you by the hand.
I'm not a fan of that style. Exactly. So it's very you listen to my advice, you take it or you don't take it, or you go and execute, and then you come back with all the learnings and the problems that you face as an executor. So I think that's personally myself. I'm always open to paying it forward. Let me just state, always open to paying it forward and helping people that need the help that I can provide, right? But you also have to show that you're ready to so I think one of the ways you show that is by being very direct. My email is moses@topship.africa.
Very easy. Moses@topship.africa. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
So yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say, if you're just in general, Topship as a business, we've put in a lot of work and we've spent a lot of time thinking around international deliveries for African businesses. And I'll say, if you are an African business that's looking to expand or grow and start delivering what you sell to other parts of the world, Topship is definitely a solution for you. And we're committed to growing with you from day one. So I would say, if you have this problem, if you have goods that you sell and you want to deliver to customers across the world, reach out to Topship. We're definitely willing to help you. We'll definitely find a solution that works for you. And thank you guys for listening.
All right, thank you very much. You've been a good sport right here on Africa Tech Radio. You have been amazing. So thank you very much for agreeing to be on the show, and we hope to do business in the future.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.